Verdantia is a world of endless prairies and floating canyon cities, a frontier realm where the skies shimmered with auroras and the earth hummed with psychic resonance. The Stellagrande were born with psychokinetic gifts, shaping matter with thought, bending stone, lifting steel, and weaving telekinetic force into their daily lives. But Seredyn was not born into privilege. He was abandoned in the slums beneath Verdantia's canyon domes, left nameless, without family or record. The other children called him a cursed child, claiming his parents cast him away because his power was unstable. He learned quickly that survival came not from compassion, but from grit. He scavenged scraps, bartered with thieves, and fought in street pits, where mind and fist both determined who ate. Even as a boy, his power burned brighter than his peers. When the gangs came for him, he hurled them across alleys with invisible hands. When older rivals mocked him, he split the ground beneath their feet. But power carried a price. Each surge left him weakened, his body trembling, blood dripping from his nose. And so, Seredyn hardened his body as much as his mind, running rooftops until his lungs screamed, fighting with blades and sidearms until his muscles no longer shook. In solitude, he discovered something unique. By splitting fragments of himself into spectral doubles, ghosts, he could fight as if he were three. These essences acted independently, but returned to him upon destruction, pouring their knowledge and mistakes into his mind. It was agony, like reliving failure thrice over, but he endured it. By the time he was grown, Seredyn was no mere street fighter. He was a storm clothed in flesh, a weapon the streets themselves had sharpened. Adulthood found Seredyn with no clan, no patron, and no cause. He became what Verdantia despised most, a mercenary for hire, selling his uncanny gifts to the highest bidder. To some, he was a bodyguard, to others an assassin. To many, he was simply a name whispered in fear. With each contract, his reputation grew. In the mines of Orith Canyon, he collapsed tunnels on raiders with a flick of thought. In the floating markets of Dalver, he ghosted himself into 3 fighters, overwhelming a dozen armored soldiers. In the outer prairies, he tore siege engines apart piece by piece, leaving wreckage littering the plains. His sidearms were never idle. He blended bullet and mind into a seamless dance of brutality and precision. Yet, with every use of his full strength, he felt himself fray. Moving cities with his mind was not a boast, it was the truth. He once shifted an entire Verdantian dome to prevent its collapse, saving thousands. But afterward, he lay in a coma for days, his body trembling on the edge of death. He learned restraint not out of mercy, but out of necessity. Despite his growing fame, Seredyn remained isolated. Payment bought survival, but not belonging. Around campfires and in barracks, he saw soldiers laugh and share bonds he could never reach. Beneath the scars and grit, he longed for something no contract could buy. Someone worthy of his protection. Someone who could quiet the silence of his exile. During a contract deep in Verdantia's uncharted mesas, Seredyn uncovered ruins older than his people. Halls carved with psychic glyphs that resonated when touched. The inscription spoke of a prophet of chaos, of trials to come, of 9 who would rise to stand against a darkness that would consume all worlds. Where others saw ancient superstition, Seredyn felt truth burn into his marrow. The glyphs trembled beneath his hands, as though recognizing his presence. For the first time in his life, he saw a path beyond survival. He returned to the slums no longer a mere mercenary, but a man obsessed. He threw himself into training, pushing his ghost technique further, learning to split into 4, then 5 essences. Though anything beyond 3 shredded his mind into seizures. He practiced collapsing matter with pinpoint precision, not just brute force, severing weapons at their joints, disarming ships without damaging cores, crushing armor around enemies without touching flesh. He built battlefields inside his own mind. He would ghost himself into sparring partners, fight them, absorb their lessons, and repeat until exhaustion blurred reality. At times, his powers left him bleeding, convulsing, and near death. But always he rose, driven by the words etched in those ruins. The 9 shall rise, but only through trial. The Forsaken will be forged. For a man who had always been outcast, the idea of being chosen, not by society, but by fate itself, was fire enough to consume him. By his 30th cycle, Seredyn had become something the Stellagrande no longer knew how to name. To his employers, he was a mercenary without equal. To his enemies, he was a terror in the shadows. To his people, he was a paradox, both their shame and their greatest weapon. Verdantia's Council of Elders summoned him once, not to crown him, but to warn him. They feared his growing strength, feared the whispers that he could topple cities with a thought, feared the glyphs that seemed to answer only to him. He left their halls in silence, more outcast than when he entered. And so he walked alone into the wilds of Verdantia. He trained not for coin, not for counsel, but for himself. He tested the limits of his ghosts against the great canyon storms, splitting into 3 and fighting phantoms until his body broke. He hurled entire boulders into the sky just to see if his mind could sustain the weight. He learned how to bleed and keep moving, how to kill and keep feeling, how to shatter without becoming shattered. One night, beneath Verdantia's starfields, he whispered to no one, "I was abandoned, but I will not abandon. If I cannot be loved, I will be feared. And if I am feared, let it be for protecting what others cannot." The winds carried his vow across the mesas. The elders said nothing. The mercenaries drank to his name. The slums whispered in awe. He was not chosen. He was not crowned. He was simply forged by exile into something greater.